Hey everybody, it's another IGTV Live with yours truly, Sam Led. I'm going to start our IGTV Live with a little Chris Cornell, and God, this is a great song. A little old school Soundgarden here on this beautiful but chilly Santa Monica. I'm in Santa Monica today. IGTV Live, we're going to take another deep dive. Hey Writer Chick, welcome. Awesome. Hey Revilla Photography, welcome. My name is Sam Led. I'm a trauma coach. You love Chris Cornell. Who doesn't, right? I'm waving to all of you guys. Oh, so good. Yes. We're going to take another deep dive. We're going to get really deep tonight. We're going to talk about how to pivot into that really kind of sacred space between grieving and healing the loss of something or someone in your life. Hey, Revella Photography, welcome. I am doing great. How are you? On this chilly Tuesday evening here in Southern California. God, this song is great. Go pick up Chris Cornell's stuff. May he rest in peace. And those of you joining us, I am Sam Led. I am a trauma coach and life strategist here based out of Southern California. Oh yeah, Chris. Sing it. Sing it, baby. Here on IGTV Live. I'm going to turn this down. Put it in the background. Hey, Queen. Welcome. We're going to talk about that sacred space between grieving and healing from a loss. Whether some of you are dealing with the loss of a loved one, or you're brokenhearted because of a relationship that went sour or just ended, whether it was abruptly or you kind of saw the flags, the red flags, and it just ended. And you know, I'm not going to de-emphasize or take away how hard it is to come out on the other side when dealing with loss, when dealing with a tragic loss, whether it's someone who did die. And this is for those of you that are maybe a couple months, maybe it's a year, or maybe less, and we all deal with loss and healing from trauma in different ways, all of us. But we all have that instinctual resilience within us. We all have that coping muscle within us. But a lot of us fail to see that brilliant space between grieving and healing. It's that kind of that portal in between where we can uniquely design our next act. How we can use that pain, how we can use that emotional minefield that you're in as rocket fuel to propel yourself, level up, to propel yourself to the next level, to get you into thinking about yourself and moving forward with your life as we pick up the pieces from dealing with a major loss. So those of you that are joining us, it's me and Chris. Say hi, Jeannie. My girlfriend's in the background. She's
What's up?
We're traveling tomorrow, so we're going.
I'm here. You got a third.
You got a third. I want you to think about the loss, if those of you who are experiencing loss. And again, I'm not diminishing the fact how difficult this is, to move forward. But those of you that are dealing with loss and you're a couple weeks, a couple months out, and you're surviving it, give yourself a round of applause, pat yourself on the back. It takes a lot of courage to move forward from a tragedy. It takes a lot of gumption. It takes a lot of strength to move on and to make a life for yourself, to pick up the pieces and moving forward. Hey, HP Nick, welcome. These are a couple questions I want you to write down, then we're going to go over them question by question. I have a lot of questions. We may not be able to go through all of them, but for your own homework, write these down. Because some of us, when we get caught off guard, when someone dies or someone leaves us abruptly, and we're not prepared for it, we're never prepared for it. It's just the human condition. We can get stuck and almost become addicted to our own victimhood, become addicted to our own internal chaos in our head. We get stuck here, and we don't see what's going on around us so much. I mean, those of us that cope with, overworking, let me turn this down, working really hard or overworking or keeping ourselves busy by engrossing ourselves in work and not really tackling, how to maneuver out of our own victimhood and out of our own pain, instead of externalizing that pain and using it as rocket fuel to move forward. A lot of us get caught up in depression. We get caught up in our own victimhood. We develop all kinds of ailments, physical or mental health issues. So these are a couple questions I want you to write down. Think about it overnight. Oh, I'm so sorry, Queen. So this applies to you, Queen. I'm so sorry of your loss, and I know how hard it is. I've been there myself. I know. We're gonna talk about that, but the big piece out of all this is I call refocusing your locus, which means shifting your attention, literally your attention away from the turmoil and going on inside and the heartbreak and the pain, and externalizing it through the creative act. I'm so sorry, writer chick. So these are a couple questions, and again, there's not a right answer. It's just something to think about as you're swimming through these painful waters of sorrow and of loss. Question number one is your filter of how you see the world been amplified? So say maybe you see the world, maybe you're a skeptic, maybe you're a cynic, and that's okay. Sometimes it happens, that trauma and bad things that happen to us kind of skew our perceptual lens of how we see the world, right? Is your filter of how you see the world been amplified by the loss and preventing you from figuring out your next step? That's question number one. Think about it, table it, talk amongst yourselves. Question number two is, are you a slave to your own trauma or your current circumstances? Are you addicted to feeling bad? Are you addicted to the negative chatter in your mind? Are you addicted to the drama that ensued as a result of the loss? Now, again, I'm not diminishing the fact how hard it is to move on, how hard it is to deal with these very heavy feelings. Therapy is great. A trauma coach like myself, I can help you kind of navigate those waters. This is not a quick fix, but this can offer you some kind of insight onto how to kind of swim through it, and not ignore the feelings, but instead of internalizing these feelings and preventing you from getting up in the morning and having a successful life and having a successful relationship, a new relationship, or having a successful next step in your career, whatever it is, that should be looked at. Next question. What are you currently losing? And again, our own ability to transcend trauma. When you can't change the circumstances you're in, if you're reeling in the loss of a person or loss of a job or whatever it is, again, we get addicted to those neurochemicals, that cortisol, these chemicals where we don't know what it's like to feel good. We don't know what it's like to actually be whole again and to feel good. So what are you currently losing right now from being stuck in the sadness by hyper-focusing on the trauma? Are you stuck in your own head? Are you creating your own victimhood? Again, these are not easy things to digest, but it's important that you look at them. The next question. How can you externalize these feelings of loss, of heartbreak, of sadness into a creative act? Into whether it's writing, whether it's in your work that you make a living doing, and how can you substitute that feeling of heartbreak, that feeling of loss, into an external event, into a creative endeavor, into something that would give you that nourishment, that self-nourishment, so you can begin to piece your life back together and move on. Okay? Important questions. I also want another question. It's to think about what your life was like before this traumatic event happened. Because a lot of times when we go through a major trauma, either unconsciously or subconsciously, a lot of feelings, a lot of things that we are trapping in our mind that are inside come out. It's almost it's an extraction, right? It's like when you go get a facial and they do all this extraction in your face. A lot of these other painful feelings come out as a result that were just, were there already in the beginning. Also something to think about. And again, dealing with heartbreak and loss and dealing with trauma is a very personal thing. No two people are alike in how they cope and deal with trauma, but it's ultimately up to you to really take a personal inventory of what is going on inside and how you can take those feelings, take those emotions, and instead of keeping them inside and letting them eat away at your psyche and who you are as a person that's deserving of happiness, as a person that's deserving of love, and deserving of having a partner or a job or a relationship that's going to give you that sustenance again. When you externalize that pain, when you externalize that feeling of utter internal chaos through a creative act, two things happen. One, you find purpose again. Whether it's in your work, how you make a living, or it's in the new relationship that's possible. Because if you are stuck in the pain and you're just swimming in this sorrow, and you go to a therapist and they use reflective listening and they're there to be a mirror for you to show you kind of what your thought pattern's like. Because literally we become a slave to our own thoughts when we go through a major life crisis or a major trauma. And again, this is not an overnight thing. I'm not saying tomorrow you're going to wake up and feel better, But if you're more self-aware of these thoughts that you're having and taking these thoughts and putting them in a container and saying, okay, I'm feeling this way. How can I shift or refocus my locus, which is my point of attention, my literal point of attention, away from the negatively charged feeling and externalize it either creatively or through rebuilding your support system that was lost when you lost this person, or finding outlets through your support system in order to recreate your life again. Because the biggest tragedy in life is when we suffer loss and we just are stuck in the past. We're stuck swimming upstream in this toxic elixir of victimhood. And that is really what I want you guys to take away from in this IGTV Live, is that internalizing and holding on to this stuff. Even if you go to the gym and you're actively kind of recirculating the dopamine, and you're going about your day and trying to put the pieces of your life together back again, it's still there. We don't really get over loss. We don't get over the people that left us or the jobs or the things in our life that didn't work out. But we learn how to refocus our point of attention literally from what happened in the past, the trauma from the past, and taking the pieces of those traumatic events or the loss into repackaging it into rocket fuel. I call it the rocket fuel to moving forward. Okay, listening to music's wonderful, because at the end of the day, you ultimately have agency over your thoughts. Ultimately, you have agency over how you feel about yourself and how you feel about the people around you. And again, none of this is easy. I'm not sugarcoating anything. It's a process, but ultimately, you can move forward from this loss, as hard as it is, and I personally understand what that's like. Hey, Kathy, welcome. A little over 2 years ago, my wife took off and left, my ex-wife. She left the life that we had here in Southern California. It was devastating, financially and otherwise. I didn't think I was going to survive it. I honestly didn't. It was so traumatic. It was abrupt. It was, it was completely horrific. But then I started to take an inventory of what happened and how I felt, and I jotted down. I think jotted is that a word? I wrote down my feelings. I wrote down my thoughts. How I felt before it happened, because I wanted to get back to baseline again. In science they call that hedonic adaptation, when eventually we get over loss. But that sweet spot between grieving and healing loss, the space in between, whether it's, and I'm not saying if this just happened, hey Chris, welcome. I see some old familiar faces. If this just happened to you, I'm so sorry. But ultimately you will move forward and you will get over it. You in the nosebleed seats, you will all move forward from this. I promise you. It's not going to be easy. But there is that sweet spot. Maybe it's 3 months out. Hey, buttered up mama. Now that's a cool name. Buttered up mama. Cool. That sweet space. It's kind of like that sweet spot in the tennis racket when you hit the ball and it just hits the perfect. It's the perfect spot in the racket. When you're still grieving the loss. But all of a sudden, there's a moment where it's kind of like when you're in the zone, where you're in the pocket. And the way you can harness that is to engage in activities, externalize activities in your day-to-day existence. It doesn't have to be complicated. You don't have to go climb Mount Kilimanjaro or just, you can go to Runyon Canyon. It doesn't matter. But the more you immerse yourself in outside experiences, whether it's taking a walk around the block every day, okay, after work, or taking your child and just literally, instead of staying in the house, going out. Changing your environment around too. Changing the furniture around your house. Anything to create some change. That sweet spot between grieving and healing a loss is the time where you're going to externalize that pain through a creative endeavor. Whether it's maybe you loved to paint before this happened. Let's just use a divorce example. Maybe before you got divorced. Hey, Money Badger, welcome. Before you got divorced, right? Or before your partner died or a family member died, you loved to paint, or you loved to do ceramics, or you loved to go bowling, right? And then it just stopped, right? Because you're in grief mode. You don't want to do anything. We get depressed, we get anxious. All we do is we go to work and we come home and then we medicate with alcohol or whatever it is. Pay attention, because initially after that negative charge, that heaviness you experience when you're going through the thick of grief, there's a slight dullness, say, after a couple months. And everyone grieves differently. Some people take years, some people take months, some people take weeks. It's all up to you. Pay attention to your emotions. Pay attention to how you feel. When I'm talking about paying attention to your emotions, take an inventory of your emotions every night. What are your thoughts as that dullness creeps up? As you slowly but surely are able to sort of climb out of that hole of grief. Write stuff down. Okay? Think about the things that you want to do with your life again. Okay, refocus your locus. Shift your attention away just for a moment. You don't have to you can do this in drips and drabs every day. Pick one time during the day when, you're maybe it's at the end of the day after work, or maybe it's during your lunch break. Okay, for those of you that work full time. Think of moments in your life when you felt completely calm, completely at ease. Maybe it was in college. Maybe it was when you had right after you had your first child, or when you graduated college, or whatever it is. Take careful notes of those moments in time when you felt completely at ease, in the flow, in the pocket, Get into that state of flow. Okay? That's you, and you'll notice it. You'll totally notice it, the feeling. And everyone knows what I'm talking about, because we've all have suffered grief, we've all suffered loss at some point in our lives, whether we were a little kid or we're currently going through it. Write it down. What did it feel like? Where were you? Okay? Go back to that place. And again, I'm not saying live in the past. I'm not saying, But we need to reharness those neurochemicals. And we need to reharness that dopamine. That pocket between grieving and healing is the most powerful place where you can figure out and write down and create or co-create the next step in your life. Because just like grief and depression have a negative signature, a negative and energetic. I call it an energetic signature. Okay, you can refocus your locus and shift the energy from it being all gloom and doom into the rocket fuel you can use to move forward with your life. I mean, if you look at some of the greatest artists, some of the greatest writers, some of the greatest sculptors, you name it, doctors, theologians, they've created their best work in that space between grieving and healing. And they did it because they became really self-aware of how they felt, of what they used to feel like before they were in that space of pain, and really kept an inventory of it, and then took action. Okay? I have another question. The creative endeavor that I'm talking about is getting in the flow. It's kind of like when you if you like basketball and you're playing basketball and time seems to just disappear, or maybe it's playing the violin and all of a sudden it's 3 hours have gone by and you don't even realize the time has gone by and you're just completely immersed in the activity, the externalized activity. That is what I'm talking about. And you can activate that space of creativity and the creative endeavor and getting into that state of flow where the dopamine is flowing, where you're feeling at calm and you're feeling confident. It's greatly amplified in that space between, whether it's a couple months, a couple weeks, after you've experienced that loss, on your way to healing. That's where the magic is, where you will write your book, where you'll start your new business, where you'll get that new job, or you'll meet that new partner. But you have to be self-aware. You have to really pay attention to the signs. Okay? You have to pay attention to the signs. I have a couple more questions for you guys. Hope you're writing this down. Hope you're enjoying this, by the way. And while you're doing this, the most important question you can ask yourself is, why am I feeling heartbroken? Why am I feeling that there's a void inside of me while I'm going through this? What is it triggering within me while I am suffering through the loss of something or someone in my life? Okay? Think about it for a second. Take a step into that space and think about it. Okay, a lot of us that and we all deal with trauma and we all deal with loss in different ways, but a lot of us don't really pay attention to the world around us, to the signs around us, to the people around us that do love us, that do want us to see successful after dealing with a major loss. Okay? But when you're in that space between grieving and healing, you'll know it. The pain will be not as great. It'll be dulled a little bit, and you'll feel a little bit more like yourself. Maybe you're at 40% or 50%, or maybe 55%. Okay? The why of moving forward. The question why. Why should I move forward after losing my husband or my wife to cancer? Why should I move forward? The why question will be answered. You can write down the why question. Why should I move forward? Why should I move on with my life? Hey, Coach Tiffany, welcome. Why should I continue with my life after someone that was so important to me in my life died, or divorced me, or broke up with me, or just left? Where's the why question? Why should I move forward? Why should I love myself enough to see all the great stuff that's possible around me? To see that amazing creative space between grieving and healing the loss and refocusing my locus and getting in that state of flow, whether it's walking around the block and just getting my heartbeat up and keeping a notebook and writing stuff down, my emotions and my feelings, spiking that dopamine. Where's my why? Why should I do that? Why? Because all of you guys are physical bodies that have spirit within you. You guys are all spiritual beings that deserve to have happiness, that deserve to have a next step, that deserve to move on with your life, and deserve to be successful with your life. And the only way you can do that is by recognizing the signs in that space between grieving and healing, by immersing yourself and externalizing all this pain through the creative act. And if you don't feel like you have the strength to do that, find tap into your support system, or hire someone like me to help you. or look at work with a therapist that works with trauma and PTSD and dealing with loss. Because ultimately, it is up to you to move forward. And the way you can do that, pick yourself up, dust yourself off, minute by minute, hour by hour, day by day, month by month, is to get excited for that space between grieving and healing as a jumping off point for that greatness, for that next step in your life. Because you all deserve that. You all deserve to transform yourself and to use that pain as rocket fuel for the next step in your life. It is the jumping off point. It may not feel it right now for those of you that are really suffering, that don't think, that everything looks gloomy outside, everything is dark, that you're just surviving. But what's in those minutes, those hours, those days of dealing with that trauma, that is where the greatness is. Where it is the secret sauce to you refocusing that locus. Are you shifting your attention away from the past and what happened and all those negatively charged feelings that you have as a next step into finding out truly how you can move forward with your life? I hope this has been of help to all of you, you in the nosebleed seats. I think I have one more question. Did I wait? I asked about the why. I think that's it. If you have any questions, feel free to DM me, to direct message me. My name is Sam Led. I'm a trauma and life strategist here in Southern California and Santa Barbara. We're going to do this next Tuesday again. It's been helpful to a lot of people. I think people really have resonated with it. If you're interested in my work, you can go to my website, check out my services, my rates, and my approach with my clients. Again, you can message me on Instagram or just contact me on my website. My website is www.solutionist180.com, and it's been an honor and a privilege to speak with all of you. Don't give up, and remember, you do have a second act. If you focus on that space between grieving and healing, and you refocus your locus, and you shift from the negative to the positive by taking active steps to externalize that pain, to externalize that grief, to externalize that drama, that sorrow, eventually you'll be able to figure out your next act. Again, thank you so much, everybody. Have a great night, and I will see you next Tuesday, 6:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time here, IGTV Live.